Katie Glueck is a senior political correspondent from McClatchy newspapers. Katie, good to see you.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the president's foreign trip first. What are we expecting?
Sure. Well, certainly the White House is hoping that the president's trip this week and over the coming days is going to help reset the narrative around the White House. It's obviously been a pretty tough 2 weeks for the White House, dealing with story after story related to former FBI Director James Comey, and then also, of course, sharing of classified information with Russian officials. There's been a lot of storylines over the last 2 weeks, and they're certainly hoping that he's going to get sort of a reset going forward and is able to show some strength and you know, they're hoping for some success over the next couple of days, although certainly as with any foreign trip there's certainly the possibility for a lot of pitfalls.
Right, and we know that President Nixon took this much ballyhooed trip not long before he was actually impeached. The intention was to take some attention away from what was happening in Watergate, but what's happening right now in Washington is not going to go away over the next week or week and a half.
Right, absolutely, and I mean, we learned this week that the process as it relates to learning more about Russian involvement in the 2016 election, the extent to which there were any ties between Russia and perhaps communications with the Trump campaign, that's an issue that is going to go on for weeks and months, and perhaps could go on for years, depending on how this new special investigation ends up playing out. Very early stages, of course.
So we're also getting some information about what some of these nations are doing in an attempt to outreach to the president, and that is Saudi Arabia serving steak alongside some more of the traditional food.
Right, absolutely. You know, there have been a number of reports out about how world leaders in other countries are preparing for the president's trip. Of course, this is a bit of an unusual trip. President Trump, of course, is someone whose background is not in politics, is not in foreign policy, and so efforts are really being made to understand how to best connect with him. You know, keeping things short, for example, making sure that someone who generally is accustomed to staying at his own hotels, his own properties, has as many of those creature comforts from home as possible. So many of these countries that are preparing to host the president are really pulling out all the stops, even on the little things.
It's also going to be interesting to see how much he sticks to the scripted remarks.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, that's always a question for President Trump, who is someone who often feels comfortable speaking off the cuff. But of course, he also does have some high-profile remarks set up. And of course, he's going into places that are often very politically sensitive. He's going to places like Saudi Arabia, places like Israel, where each word it has the potential to really be parsed for particular political meaning. So words are really going to matter here, and it will be watched carefully over the next couple of days.
Katie, can we talk for a bit about the briefing now from the Deputy Attorney General this morning to the House? The Senate was yesterday. We saw Darrell Issa and Elijah Cummings make some comments after. Did any more information beyond what he told senators come out today?
Well, you know, as lawmakers are meeting with these folks, you know, we're hearing a lot of them still have many questions about kind of the timeline and what answers were, you know, Rosenstein was forthcoming about it and what maybe he was less so. But, you know, I know that a number of lawmakers have said after coming out of some of these meetings that, you know, in contrast perhaps to what President Trump has said about this being a witch hunt, you know, they're taking the line that, you know, this is a country where rule of law is very important. A special investigator has been tapped at this point, and so we got to follow the legal proceedings here. That's what you're hearing actually from Republicans as well, as you also hear questions about sort of the role that Congress may now have in overseeing these issues as they relate to Russian involvement. And
so it complicates the situation because there's now special counsel involved, but it also, I mean, to a certain extent, some of this makes things a little bit easier in terms of the actual communication then, because the White House can then just point to the special counsel and say, well, they're handling everything. And Congress, for that matter, whether their abilities are impeded or not, they can also point to the special counsel, correct?
Absolutely. And, I was actually just talking with a smart conservative source of mine who said that, long term this may end up being problematic for the Trump administration depending on what the special counsel finds, whether the special counsel, maybe feels a need to find something. This was this particular person's viewpoint. But they said that regardless of how that ends up playing out, in the short term there is the opportunity for the White House to kind of get back on track because they can do exactly what you just suggested, refer questions to the special counsel. Of course, we've seen President Trump weighing in on this with some tweets yesterday, but going forward there is that ability to say, this is not what we're focused on, direct those questions to the special counsel, and you could see members of Congress doing the same.
And in the meantime, the former FBI director James Comey is still doing a pretty good job, it would seem, communicating his thoughts through surrogates.
Indeed, there continue to be stories coming out about former FBI Director Comey's relationship with President Trump, interactions with President Trump. The narrative that's coming out is that sometimes the former director was uncomfortable with some of the overtures from President Trump. And you're actually seeing some people start to talk on the record about this. So it seems clear that some of his supporters feel strongly about the way that they feel that the director's been treated and kind of the narrative coming out of the White House. And so you're actually seeing some on-the-record pushback as well.
And Katie, the White House did just say this afternoon, not too long ago, we will not be hearing who the new FBI director is today, at least.
Right, and that has raised some questions about the standing of Joe Lieberman, of course, a former Democratic senator and then later independent from Connecticut, who has in the last 24 hours been talked up quite a bit as perhaps a leading contender to fill that slot. But at the same time, you've also seen a lot of pushback from Senate Democrats saying that Lieberman would actually not be easily supported by their caucus on the Hill. And so interested to see whether he remains kind of the front runner going forward.
The possibility that the White House misjudged how floating the idea of Lieberman might be received.
Certainly, for some Democrats, there's not a lot of love lost there for Senator Lieberman, who certainly served as a Democratic senator for a long time, but of course ended up endorsing John McCain and is certainly quite moderate compared to where much of the caucus is now.
All right, Katie Glueck in Washington. Katie, thank you so much.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.